Hey guys, VaulSC here. Thanks for checking out my coverage of the INZO 2019 ITS Infinity Tournament. We're into Game 2, so it's going to be Transmission Matrix. I'm playing Dashat. I'm up against my buddy Jono, who's bringing his Nomads. And ironically, it's going to be a bit of a rematch with a couple changes. Jono is a guy who I specifically practiced this matchup against, and I've managed to run into him even though he's in my local meta for this round. So when we practiced this, it was Invincible Army versus Nomads, and I was, testing out, the theories for Transmission Matrix. So I had a Deflector level 2 Link team with a high Dow, and I was trying to deal with memory problems and the Interventor and so forth, and what's resulted is that I'm now playing Dashat instead. I've got my little Valeria Gromos as bait, and you may have seen my introductory video going through the Amulet, so I won't go into detail here. I'm sure you guys have already watched that. Whereas my opponent has kicked it up a notch, and he's taking the Evo repeater now, as well as memory problems, and the Interventor, and the Zero Killer Hacker, as far as I remember. So he's gone for all the hackers, but the catch is that he's going to be having to use his remaining points left over that's not spent on hacking to deal with all my Bounty Unders and McMurray and Saito Tagan and the Libertos. So we're going to find out how that is going to work out soon. Playing on the beautiful Rumble Dome yet again. Earlier this year I had the pleasure of playing on this table, and now we're playing on it again. And interestingly enough, you can see some of my terrain on it as well, as the Rumble Dome not enough to cover the whole table sufficiently. So I've got one side at the bottom of the photo here blocked off by my classic Bandua terrain, very practical for Infinity, and then the not so practical for Infinity but very good looking Rumble Dome on the other side, and we're just gonna have to make a game of it. I know I've talked about Transmission Matrix a million times before, but let's just do a very quick recap. So grab the pen. There's an objective in the middle, there's two objectives on either side next to the deployment zones here and here. And what you've got to do is at the end of every game round, you've got to be controlling more of these than your opponent by having, a greater number of points worth within 4 of each objective. Therefore, it is very good for the player going second, because you can simply identify which models your opponent has put next to the objectives at the end of his turn or her turn, and kill them and move your troops in. So very straightforward, but there's 3 rounds to play, so you've still got to keep your guys alive during that and fend off attacks from your opponent. Speaking of our opponent, let's have a look at this Nomad list. So we're going to be going up against 2 Hellcats. My opponent really feeling like in the practice game maybe the Hellcat's doing well. He's also got plenty of guys to put up controlled jump, so no problem with that. Hellcats, interestingly, you can go for a bit of a gambit where you drop them in right next to where the beacon is in your second turn, and that can, be game winning. But you've got to be careful. I mean, your opponent's likely to set up arrows nearby, and once they're down there, the Hellcats have got to fight, through enemy lines. They may miss their jump, so it's a bit risky. But I like what he's doing here, and I don't actually think it's that bad a move. If you're going to go all in on this kind of strategy, you may as well do it correctly. Reaction zoned, I don't mind this, because in the active turn you've got assisted fire going onto it. If you've got this many killer hackers in your list, you're going to win the hacking war, no doubt. And then the zoned is quite good defensively and offensively. My only concern for him is that if he runs into a mirror match where it's like Nomads versus Nomads and he happens to win the hack off eventually, the reaction zone is going to get hacked every time it tries to activate. Krakot Renegade Red Fury, beautiful profile. I've always loved it. I feel like he's copying me by going for this, but it's going to be the data tracker for this game. It's just so good at ignoring enemy jammers and getting the kills and blowing things up with a chest mine. You guys know how I feel about the Krakot. Heckler Jammer, for those people who don't have access to veteran stuff and unjammable things, the Heckler is beautiful for blocking off that offense and also making sure that you're punishing your opponent for moving onto the transmitter areas as objectives. Memory Problems, excellent for this scenario because of her ability to deal with enemy hackers as well as punish hackable targets. Flash Pulse, Jaguars, great cheerleaders here. The Zero Killer Hacker, great for infiltration and setting up mines in the middle objective. Interventor here, what more could you want really? Hacking Device Plus, or is it Killer Device Plus upgrade? I can't quite remember which one he took, but either way, the more hacking the better if you are going up against enemy hackers. The Moran with Crazy Koalas, excellent for defending your side of the transmitters. Evo bot, I think this is overkill by now, but if you're really afraid of coming up against Onyx, Tunguska, troopers that opponents are going to have quite a lot of hacking in their armies, that command token you can spend to give you Kaleidoscope or whatever it's called is really, really good. Securitate, I think it's just criminal that Nomads go from having a lieutenant with willpower 13 that they have to spend an SWC for, to having a lieutenant that costs 13 points with willpower 14 that they don't have to spend any SWC on. Just doesn't make any sense. Daktari and Zonbot, you need that for reviving your hackers if they get unlucky. So I actually think this is a pretty good list. I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't run this strategy in general, but if I was committed to going for hackers, I probably wouldn't take quite this much hacking, but near to it. And I'd take similar sort of stuff, to be honest. This is actually pretty good looking. Let's get into it. So, my opponent is fortunate enough to win the first turn. Well, the dice roll for first turn, and he opts to take the second turn. And this is the strategy I've been harping on about forever, and he knows it, and he's played against me to see how powerful it is. We practice a lot. And he's opted to go for second turn. Now, the challenge is, and again, this is for people who are confident, the challenge is if you're going second, you're having to deploy first and bear the brunt of your opponent's alpha strike, meaning that he's going to have to contend with McMurray and Saito and the Link team and the Libertos all in one go, and there could be several waves of this coming throughout the game, so he's got to be able to hold on. In order to do that, he's setting up on his left-hand flank here with the Cracker. It's going to be the Data Tracker. There's the Jaguar to hold off, both of these areas with his chain rifle. Evo Repeater tucked away in the corner. Camo Marker, which is actually prone here, tricking me into thinking it's an intruder, is going to be a jammer, blocking off this whole area around here, which is going to be very powerful for stopping the run into this objective. Daktari Zonbot here. There's a Transconductor Zon behind that, just leading the cheers. In the back lines behind the grandstands, and in front of the grandstands actually, is the Moran out here, which is going to be defending this objective. So the one in the distance over here has got the Jammer defending it, and this one up close has got the Moran defending it with the Crazy Koalas. Out in the midfield, the Zero Killer Hacker setting up, planning on moving around here towards the center to capture that later in the game. And then we've got the other Jaguar, we've got the Securitate back here. And that's the right-hand flank towards the middle. I don't think this model here is actually anything. Might just be him about to play some sort of HVT or whatnot, but I don't remember there being a Morlock in the list. Maybe there was, but I can't remember it. It didn't really do anything if it did. So Securitate, Jaguar, this is, I believe, the Interventor there. That's Merry Problems there, and there's that Daktari at the back. So everybody just camped out behind the back of the grandstands, as you do. Close look at his Moran there, just hanging out in front of this with all of the cans around the seats that he's probably drunk. His HVT is actually on the far left-hand flank, and bear in mind that this is significant. It's a designated target, and I must kill this with my Data Tracker in order to get 3 points, and I'm going to go for that because as the player with the first turn, it may be a struggle to pick up the points from every single game round. Alright, Dashat Company, what we're doing here is we're putting a flash pulse spot right at the back, and normally you wouldn't put them out in the open like that, but due to the layout of the table, there's a massive line of sight blocker here, a massive one here, and the flanks blocked off, so this bot is really standing there to be able to flash the Hellcats when they land. I'm worried about Hellcats. I didn't think there'd be 2 of them, but I know that there'll be at least 1, or I suspect it. So he's just camped at the back. Then, of course, you've got all the bounty hunters and the doctor and everybody on this building. Liberto is on the second floor and the mine's on the bottom floor. Then there's the designated target of my own over here. We've got a couple of tractor mules around the back. Joe, got to be joining the Link team as he moves towards the middle. And everybody else is in the other buildings. So we'll go take a look around. So looking from the center, tractor mule down the bottom, flash pulse over here, another one over here just guarding this flank. Then tractor mule is the lieutenant in the corner next to the objective, and the dozer prone behind the objective. Now this is a bit risky because together those 2 models don't equate to a lot of points. And unfortunately I forgot to put my tractor mule inside the building, which would have been a much better place for it to be, because if I can keep that within range of the objective, you've got the baggage bonus as well. So I think that was just a poorly deployed model. Couple of a Libertos and a mine out in the midfield. The mine, of course, is the one covering the objective, and the Libertos is in the grandstands ready to move out and try to lay more mines. Okay, so there's the shot of them. This is a shot looking from the center of the table towards my deployment zone, where you can see Valeria and the Zuyong. This is, of course, the setup where the bounty hunters can wildcard as either a Zuyong to be a Zuyong Link or a Brawler, and we're starting the game for obvious reasons with the the Zuyong manning up the Link team with Valeria. After he kills Valeria, then I'll switch using the command token to a Brawler plus bounty hunters Link. If that makes sense, if you guys watched my intro video explaining my strategy for Dashat. Saito Tugan is just going to camp right behind the central objective. Normally I wouldn't do this if my opponent has a sensor bot, but my opponent hasn't taken one, and I've paid careful attention to that. Nothing in his list has sensor, so I may as well do this. What it allows me to do is to wait for the very last order of his turn, then reveal Saito, putting that extra 40 points in the center when he's least expecting it, and hopefully flipping the 2 objective points back to me. Can be a very powerful strategy if it works, but be wary of sensors. My reserve trooper is McMurray, and he'll be heading down this flank towards this position here, hoping to cause as much damage. I've rolled up some bounty hunter stuff, so Pino has Mimetism, Zeke has an auto medkit, Joe has smoke grenades, great, Hayashi auto medkit, so a below average roll, but Mimetism and smoke grenades, definitely nice. Speaking of smoke grenades, McMurray moving out as an impetuous move, and what we're going to do, because I forgot to mention that he has this TR bot off here, this TR bot is reserve trooper, by the way, so TR bot can see down this line. What we're doing is we're throwing a smoke in the way so that we can get through this. Here is a big obstacle that's opaque, can't see through that. So McMurray planting that, and then after moving through the smoke, we're going to be careful here because although I suspect this to be an intruder, it's not. And once I come within this general range here, it's going to be awkward. Having said that, McMurray has martial arts, which gives him a stealth, so if I initially get jammed and I survive it, I might be able to martial arts out of range without taking that. So in we go, moving around, and what we're going to be trying to do is to super jump just high enough so that the top of McMurray's silhouette is raised up above this line, this wall here, so that you can then start harassing the Krakot. And I want to take down the Krakot because it's the data tracker. I want to avoid that situation later where my opponent can pull some points back with that. But also because the Krakot's capable of doing a fair bit of damage if it comes around my side of the table. It's his one very aggressive piece. Now, of course, McMurray does attempt that, jumping up, and we realize, oh, there actually is a jammer. And the Krakot is actually not activating his chest mine here, as far as I can recall. My recollection's a little bit hazy, but I do remember the jammer going off, and I do remember trying to reset against the jammer because I felt like if I did manage to survive just this one order, McMurray can actually just martial arts his way out of the way with stealth. So luckily McMurray does survive, doesn't get jammed, and he can continue for a little bit. So moving around here, having a go at the Jaguar, and it's been a while since I played Jaguars, and this is a mistake from me. Forgot that they had Dogged, otherwise I probably wouldn't have tried to engage him, or at least tried to move back out of line of sight after shooting him. So we're exchanging some chain rifle shots here. McMurray generally getting the best of it, passing his armor saves, but eventually the Jaguar's taken a wound, goes Dogged, and I have to move back away. Krakot is, of course, changing facing for his life and still moving around. Lastly, as we get towards the end of the turn, I'm fine with McMurray getting isolated towards the end of the turn when I have fewer orders left to spend to him, because he's going to be very annoying for the opponent, in ARO, in reactive turn. So we jump up, try to get a reaction out of the Krakot, blast him with a couple of chain rifles or a grenade or whatever it was, taking the jammer again, and this time failing the BTS check after he passes his willpower, and Krakot dies. McMurray is isolated, but I'm kind of okay with that because the Jaguar also is killed. Towards the center of the table, the Liberto moves out and plants a mine a little bit more aggressively into enemy territory. The Liberto is also standing here because he's basically acting as bait for my opponent. If my opponent does nothing about him, he's controlling that central objective towards the end. So what I'm hoping will happen is my opponent next turn will clear the mines, shoot the Libertos, and then end up moving something in range of the objective. Saito then appears without breaking marks. He'll just idle, and then the turn ends, and hopefully I'll have the 2 points for scoring there. And then after that, in my active turn, Saito can move out and actually swipe somebody's head off with his sword at that range. Plenty of orders left in Group 2, though, so the Liberto just moving around, and he's going to have to go prone at some point. Well, actually, the bot's going to try and discover him at some point, but the cloud and the objective here can be seen over. But we can quite easily avoid him. So Liberto's coming down the stairs, down this area here, and towards McMurray. And his goal is to try and get around like this, all the way around here, and get around to this spot, where I should be able to shoot his little Palbot guy, cause a shotgun blast to go through the transconductor, and that should eliminate the little bot there. I want to do that because if I don't, then he can potentially move around after killing McMurray and revive the Krakot, which is really not ideal. So here he comes into the corner, unleashes his light shotgun, and sadly doesn't actually manage to kill this little bot. I think he does manage to get the transconductor, but a little bit of an unlucky round from our Liberto's friend. I might have been better off placing a mine first, to be honest. There's also a little bit of a reshuffle, reposition with the Link team, just getting the Doctor closer to Valeria, who's likely to die next turn, and the Link team all sort of squeezing up and getting into the right spots. So my opponent, what he's decided to do right off the bat is to put up assisted fire, I think it is. No, the bot's moving out here. He doesn't need assisted fire, so he's moving up on top of this. And he's basically going for the long-range shot at McMurray, right? So he doesn't need shock or assisted fire. Ugh. He doesn't really need any buffs at this point. So he goes to shoot McMurray after gaining a bit of elevation. McMurray was able to use the elevation to his advantage earlier on, but now that he's gone further up the grandstands, the bot can actually shoot him. And the bot does that successfully, dropping McMurray to unconscious with his heavy machine gun. The problem here is that Valeria Gromos is actually alive, so he's done this in the wrong order. What he needed to have done is to have activated Merry Problems and used Lightning or something like that to kill Valeria, and then move the bot, because what happens here is that as the bot goes after McMurray, he gets isolated with a gotcha and has to reset to be able to activate later on. For some reason there's a support wear marker there, and I suppose that maybe support wear was actually placed on him. No, wait. I think the reason the support wear is there is possibly because the Evo repeater had a command token spent earlier on to set it up. Yeah, that's what happened. So there was a command token to set up that support wear on the bot before the game started, because he was thinking that I might move troops into line of sight of the TR bot, so he wanted that support wear there. Okay, so anyway, we've lost the transconductor Zond. The reaction Zond is immobilized. The little Libertos here is immobilized as well by the Jammer, so the Jammer doing very well. Dactari moving around to try and heal people, but at first the Liberto just jumping out of the way of the Dactari trying to shoot him. And then we have a Hellcat show up, and by the way guys, if I didn't already mention, he does activate his hacker at some point to kill Valeria, and that does happen. Valeria does die, and then he puts control jump up so that this Hellcat can show up. Okay, so Hellcat showing up on the side of the table with a Spitfire, and this is near to his deployment zone, and he's going to be doing this because he wants to kill the Libertos by shooting it in the back. That's really important to him, so I'm okay with that. Libertos has baited this guy out. This guy's not in the back of my lines killing my cheerleaders, so that's fine. But he needs to kill Libertos, otherwise he's going to have some trouble moving up to revive the Krakot, which is his long-term goal. Okay, so that happens, and then we're continuing to move around. So we've got the Dactari moving to position, Evo repeaters here. Then comes the second Hellcat. So I know he's not painted, so he's sort of camouflaged in here, but that is a Hellcat, and it's landing right next to my objective on my side. Now, I had to think about this for a little bit, and I decided to make a very bold and risky play, and I honestly wasn't sure whether this was the right thing to do. But I decided to reveal Saito Togan at this point, getting a free shot with his combi rifle, really hoping to God that he would hit. If he misses, he's in trouble, and even if he does kill that Hellcat, my opponent does have things in his army which can now go after Saito. I was just really hoping that I would get my combi rifle shot off to fend off that Hellcat, and then use smoke grenades to survive the rest of the turn, which, you know, there's a possibility of that, but it's going to be difficult. So the argument for me doing this, and this is a really risky play, is that if I don't do it, if Saito doesn't appear here, that Hellcat dropping successfully there with his combi rifle can move around, shoot my dozer, and then move around, shoot my lieutenant, and end the turn in control of that objective. Whereas if Saito's there, he's got to at least spend some time fending Saito off and killing Saito, and he might not be able to complete the rest of his actions. So I decided to take the risk because losing my lieutenant and that objective would have been disastrous. So Saito shows up, has a go at it, shoots and misses, so sadly we're in a bit of trouble here. There it is from his perspective. That's the Hellcat over here. And if you can see in the top left, that's position of McMurray and the other objective on the other side. So now what he's going to have a crack at doing is bring in the Spitfire Hellcat to pincer me and box me and come around this side, gain cover, and fire his Spitfire at this range against Saito. And the Spitfire is generally going to be better at doing this than the combi rifle. I've angled Saito so that he can see both ways, very important. I knew this would be coming. But Saito still has TO camo and he still is hitting a smoke on a 16. So that's definitely what we're going to be trying. There he is there on the right hand side, and oh no, so Saito gets lucky. My dreams and wishes come true here, and Saito does get a decent roll on a smoke grenade, blocking the Spitfire, so he's now in smoke, and that gives us the opportunity here for the Hellcat to do things, but it's not going to be able to do very much. In fact, he's almost out of orders. So what he does decide to do, and by the way, my lieutenant's in suppression fire since last turn, just because I'm worried about specifically this kind of thing. So the Hellcat also goes into suppression fire, and I feel like that's a mistake. It wasn't really, suppression fire is not really very good. There are ways around it. And after this turn, we realized rather embarrassingly that the position of this Hellcat, if we marked a line along here, although some of the terrain was obscuring it, I don't have a very good photo, my brawler sniper was in line of sight of him the entire time, so he actually couldn't have dropped there, and the sniper was covering the doorway as well. So had I known that, maybe I wouldn't have even revealed Saito, but it all worked out in the end. With that in mind, I now spend a command token, reform the link team involving the brawler, involving all of the bounty hunters, and we start moving out. And because I didn't take shots at him before, I just made an agreement with my opponent that would say that there wasn't line of sight through that very slim crack between this side of the table and the Hellcat's position. But no matter, we'll be dealing with him shortly. So the bounty hunter team, they're moving out, they're looking for some bounties, alright? So there's a price on people's head. Now you can see the problem here with this reaction zone up here. So he's been immobilized, he hasn't attempted to reset later in his turn. And now I can simply come around the corner with my brawler sniper and a 5-man link and fire at him, and all he can do is reset. So that's really bad for the reaction zone, and he's destroyed immediately. Next target is going to be this Hellcat over here. So we need to set up a position around about there and just dot a line past Saito over to that Hellcat. But there's also a Hellcat around this side of the table as well. So we're just going to have to try and take them out one by one. So the first one is actually going to be the Spitfire, so we're just bringing the brawler carefully to that position, just nicking a line ever so carefully to here. When it's my active turn and I'm in a full link, even without cover, I've got good odds here. So 15s on 3 dice versus 15 on 1 dice does manage to win it, although this is still precarious. I can easily lose that roll. If I do, then I'm going to have to use the data tracking Red Fury, Hayashi, to get the job done, but luckily Brawler manages to get it and cracks the neck, and then we can just move over and shoot that other Hellcat in the distance. So the link team has nailed both of the Hellcats, things looking good. My data tracker is this bounty hunter with a Red Fury, and it moves up to the corner here, and there's no way I can do this without coming into range of the jammer. They all have stealth, so that's fine, but once we actually want to shoot, the jammer will be able to react. Now I'm going for this because this is a full 3 objective points right here. Data tracker, blasting designated target, does so successfully, hitting on 15s, got shot, got all the good stuff, is the team leader, but of course the jammer does its dastardly work, and the link leader here is isolated, breaks the link, data tracker is isolated as well, but it's okay because we're in a winning position in terms of attrition. So Bounty Hunter team is reformed, we pick everybody up again, We're sending guys into range of his objective, so this is going to be great. It's meaning that I've got 2 objectives on my side of the table. Saito's in the middle. I've got one of the ones on his side. I've knocked out all of his guns, like his Hellcats and his Zonbot. He's really only got his hackers left, and I haven't really got anything hackable for him, so I've taken the lead at this point. Doctor, with Group 2's orders, there's some left, making the trek all the way around the battlefield. I feel I can really nail the coffin shut if the Doctor can revive McMurrough. So she's going all the way over here, just sprinting with every last order, getting around. She will activate the jammer once she comes in range, so the Doctor does that, moves over to McMurrough. Of course she fails the check. McMurrough has no cube, no rerolls. McMurrough is removed, and the Doctor is hit by the jammer as well. But that play was really well worth doing, because if McMurrough is there and he's back alive again, he can drop smoke, he's in range of the objective, he can super jump up to the jammer next turn. It becomes a real bad problem for my opponent. So here we are. Doctor is just hanging out right next to the objective. At least the weight of her extra points as the 1-1-2 can be contributed to the scenario. Okay, so back to my opponent. This is, I think, his final turn. No, I think turn 2 actually. Yeah, turn 2. Daktari moving around, the little bot moving around, and we're just going to try and get the bot into position to hang out and hopefully come within range of the objective is the Nomad plan here. So she's moving up, and she's just trying to get in range of the objective just to add the weight of her points. The Zero killer hacker on the other side of the table is heading out towards Saito, and I can't really attempt to discover with Saito because then he might shoot me, and I don't want to lose Saito, right? So the Zero is moving towards the middle of the table for some maneuvers here. This is a coordinated order, and we're also moving out with Mary Problems and the Interventor. Note that this is actually Zoe and Pywell's miniature, and note also that this miniature was painted by myself. I put a lot of work into this miniature for a miniature painting competition, but I was painting my friend's model, not actually my model, but hopefully you guys agree that this miniature looks pretty good. Okay, so the Zero makes it to the middle of the table. He's trying to avoid the Aristaya obstacles here and get around so he can lay a mine that will be in range of Saito Tagan, who is here. After he's laid the mine, his plan is to move around and shoot at Saito and make him take a check against the mine and the combi rifle. So that's what's set up. Lays the mine there and then moves around to try and detonate. He's already taken out the Liberto, apparently. Can't remember how that happened. I think the Hellcat might have done it. And Saito, again, the hero that he is, manages to dodge. So Saito manages to come out best off. There he is there. What a hero. Just dodging left and right and managing to win this. The mine goes off and is removed. And then we come back to my turn. So when it's my turn, Saito can easily move out. He can whip the head off the Zero, and then he's just going to camp back in the middle of the table. The Bounty Hunters, they're going to send Pino up the ladder to deal with the Daktari and the Jammer, but unfortunately Pino, even though he's close range with an SMG, just blasting everybody point blank, he can't even do that, and they manage to shoot him, so he's unconscious. Joe, undeterred by that, is moving around over here. He's going to try and get to this point where he might be able to cross off the Evo repeater, but also fire his glue gun and stuff long range at Mary Problems. So he tries to set up that play, but doesn't really get very much out of it. Unfortunately, things miss, but he's in a great arrow position there to annoy them. On my side of the table, just in case there are any more shenanigans, I'm moving around my tractor mule into range of one of my objectives just to add the extra points, but it's sufficiently secured by the Zuyong, as you can see at the top right there. So just a little bit of a recap on state of play. I've had 2 turns now. I'm pretty solidly in the lead. In fact, I may have had 3 turns. This objective here is controlled by the Zuyong and the tractor mule. This one over here has my lieutenant and the dozer controlling it. The middle objective has got Saito Tagan controlling it, and this objective has 2 bounty hunters and a doctor contesting it against the Daktari and the little Palbot, and this one over here has the Moran. So to get some points back, my opponent has to move through and defeat Saito and try and defeat some of these bounty hunters, but sadly he's just got too few models left. So we'll grab Extreme Prejudice from the corpse of the bounty hunter at least, so that's 1 point to him. And then Mary Problems moving around with her ODD and a submachine gun, just trying to come in range and just blast a few people, but she can't really get anything done, and the bounty hunters are still on the objective. So sadly for him, the game is over, and it means that somehow miraculously, even though I went first, I managed to get 2 points from every game round from the objectives. Plus I got another 3 from killing the designated target with my data tracker, the Red Fury Bounty Hunter. And I think I managed to pick up a classified as well. I can't quite remember. I may have got to his HVT. No HVTs. There's a designated target. I may have got my classified, but I can't quite remember. I do remember, though, that it's a total and utter victory for Dashat. But I think the scoreline doesn't really tell a very good story about what actually happened. The bat rep does. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of these photos and the explanation. And you can see during that first turn, especially in that first 2 turns, how difficult it was and how badly it could have gone for me if Saito had lost a key face-to-face roll and he'd steamrolled into my lieutenant and started picking me apart that way. I'm pretty confident I would have lost the game. So, well played to my opponent. He did pretty well. I got a little bit lucky with Saito, but Saito still had some pretty good odds of throwing smoke, getting shots with his combi, things like that. So he is a pretty good trooper. You definitely get what you pay for out of him. And we'll be on to the next round pretty soon. Join me there.